The phone in your hand, the TV on your wall. The truth is, you're living in a Samsung world. They don't just build our tech, they build the skyscrapers we work in and the massive ships that cross our oceans. In Korea, the saying goes, you can live your entire life with Samsung and you'll be buried in a Samsung coffin. Now, imagine being the heir to all of it. A $370 billion empire. You are modern royalty. There is only one place you should never be, a jail cell. And yet, for the leader of the Samsung Dynasty, that's precisely where he ended up. These are the kinds of stories I'm endlessly fascinated by, the dance between staggering power and deep human flaws. Together, we're going to unravel the epic saga of the Lee family, from rags to riches to a prison cell. But to truly understand this dynasty, we have to correct a common myth. This was never a rags to riches story. It was a story of riches to even greater riches, built upon a foundation of ancient power. The Lee family's roots don't begin in a dusty workshop, but in the golden age of ancient Korea. Imagine the Silla kingdom almost 2,000 years ago. Here, the Lees were part of the Byung-chul clan, an elite lineage so revered that in the 1st century, King Yuri himself is said to have bestowed upon them their name. This isn't like a Scottish clan based on territory, or even a Japanese one tied to a feudal lord. They were, for all intents and purposes, aristocrats. So when the founder, Lee Byung-chul, was born in 1910, it wasn't into poverty. It was into a wealthy, land-owning family who could afford to send him to one of Japan's most prestigious institutions, Waseda University. He was a son of privilege. But privilege doesn't always create vision. In a move that must have stunned his family, he dropped out of university midway through. He wasn't running from failure, he was running towards a calling only he could see. After a few years of observing the world, he made his move. In 1938, in the city of Daegu, he took his first step. With just 30,000 won, the equivalent of about $25 today, he founded a tiny trading company. It dealt in groceries and noodles, transporting them across the province in his own trucks. And he gave this humble new venture a name with cosmic ambition, Samsung, meaning 3 stars, a symbol of something big, bright, and everlasting. But a vision, no matter how grand, can be fragile. And just as the 3 stars of Samsung began to rise, the world around them shattered. In 1950, war tore the Korean peninsula apart. Lee Byung-chul lost everything. His warehouses, his trucks, his entire operation in Seoul, all abandoned as he fled south to the crowded port city of Busan. The nation was in ruins, a landscape of desperation and fear. And yet, it's in these moments of profound crisis that the character of a founder is truly forged. Because in the middle of this national tragedy, an unexpected, almost uncomfortable opportunity emerged. The war brought an influx of American troops, and with them came a sudden, cash-rich market for goods. While others saw only chaos, Lee saw a new kind of demand. He pivoted. He started a sugar refinery, then a wool mill, producing the textiles that would be essential for a country literally rebuilding itself from the ashes. He wasn't just doing business, he was weaving his company into the very fabric of South Korea's economic resurrection. Once the war was over, that momentum became unstoppable. Throughout the 1960s, Samsung grew with ferocious speed, acquiring insurance companies, department stores, and universities. It was a strategy of total diversification, a desire to have a hand in every part of Korea's new future. Then came the turning point. In 1969, Lee made the single most important decision of his life. he took a massive leap into a new, unproven industry, electronics. It was a huge risk, but it paid off on a scale few could have imagined. Within just a few years, Samsung had become the largest producer of black and white televisions in the world. When Byung-chul passed away in 1987, the boy who started with $25 left behind a national champion, a multi-million-dollar empire that had risen from the ashes of war. He had fulfilled his cosmic ambition, but he also left behind a successor. And the question that hung in the air was, would the son simply inherit the throne, or transform it into something the world had never seen before? The answer arrived not as a whisper, but as a thunderclap. The son, Kunhee, took the reins of Samsung Electronics and saw not a national champion, but a giant asleep. In his eyes, the company was a second-rate, quantity-obsessed manufacturer stuck in a rigid, hierarchical culture where no one dared to challenge their superiors. He saw a sickness that success was hiding, and in 1993, he declared the cure, a radical, new management philosophy. He famously told his executives to change everything except your wife and kids. He challenged a very core of Korean corporate life, demanding debate, encouraging failure, and pushing for a painful, uncompromising reinvention. His core principle was simple: quality over quantity. Imagine a sprawling factory, noisy and chaotic, churning out 10,000 functional but unremarkable swords a day. Kunhee wanted to shut it down. He envisioned a quiet forge where a single master smith would spend a month hammering, folding, and polishing one perfect, peerless blade. That was the new Samsung. This obsession with perfection worked. It was electric. Samsung pivoted from making cheap electronics to creating world-class premium products. The company exploded across the globe. By 1995, just 2 years after his declaration, Samsung's revenues had soared to an astonishing $87 billion. Kunhee hadn't just inherited the throne, he had built an empire on top of it, one that was sleeker, faster, and more powerful than anything his father could have imagined. But this is where the story turns. You see, the shadow of a dynasty often grows with its light. In 1996, the first major crack appeared. Kunhee was implicated in a political bribery scandal. He was found guilty, but his prison sentence was suspended. He was then given a full presidential pardon, with the justification that he was too important to the South Korean economy to be jailed. The message was clear. Some men build empires so large they rise above the law, and once that line is crossed, it's easier to cross it again. In 2008, another blow. He was convicted of tax evasion, slapped with an $80 million fine, and again sentenced to a suspended prison term. And again, he received a presidential pardon, this time to help South Korea's bid for the Winter Olympics. A pattern had been set. The builder of the future had also become the buyer of pardons. In 2014, Kunhee suffered a debilitating heart attack, leaving him incapacitated. The empire, now a global technology titan, fell to his son, Jaeyong. The baton was passed once more, but this time, the inheritance wasn't just a thriving business. It was also a legacy of scandal, a dynastic flaw that had become part of the company's DNA. And for the new heir, Jaeyong, this flaw wouldn't just be a part of his legacy, it would define it. On the surface, he was the perfect third-generation leader. He seemed less like the imperial chairman his father was, and more like a modern, globally minded executive. For a moment, it seemed possible that he could steer the Samsung ship into calmer waters, away from the scandals of the past. But a curse, if you believe in such things, doesn't distinguish between generations. It only waits for its moment. And that moment arrived in 2017, in a scandal that would eclipse everything his father had ever faced. Lee Jaeyong was accused of bribing the president of South Korea herself, Park Kun-hee, to secure a controversial merger that would solidify his control over the empire. The crime itself was familiar territory for the family, but the method, the specific, tangible detail of the bribe, is what makes this story unforgettable. He embezzled company funds to buy the president's daughter, a competitive equestrian rider, an $800,000 horse. Let that sink in. An $800,000 horse. The sheer audacity of it is cinematic. This wasn't some subtle transfer of funds. It was a grand, almost feudal gesture of patronage. And for this, the unthinkable happened. The man who had everything, the crown prince of the Samsung Empire, was arrested, tried, and sentenced to 5 years in prison. For the first time, a Lee family head was behind bars. But if you've been following this story, you know the pattern. The sentence was suspended on appeal, he was released, and then in 2021, he received the predictable presidential pardon, citing his importance to the national economy. It was his father's story, but played out on a far grander, more dramatic stage, and the curse wasn't done. The cycle his father set was now on overdrive. Soon after, he was charged and fined over $50,000 for the illegal use of the anesthetic propofol, and looming over him, even today, is a monumental trial for a separate $3.9 billion accounting fraud case related to that same merger. Yet, through this whirlwind of personal and legal chaos, what happened to Samsung? It sold. In late 2023, while its leader was still navigating courtrooms, Samsung held a 19.4% share of the global smartphone market. The company was, it seemed, truly too big to fail, even if its leader wasn't too big to jail. Today, Lee Jaeyong is back at the helm, charting the future of Samsung. But he does so with the scepter of one of the world's most powerful companies in one hand and the shadow of another possible prison sentence looming over the other. And in that paradox, between the scepter of power and the shadow of prison, lies the true story of the Samsung Dynasty. It's a tale of breathtaking ambition and visionary innovation, a journey from a $25 investment to a global empire. But it's also a story haunted by a recurring pattern of ethical compromise and legal battles, a curse that seems to repeat with each new generation. In many ways, this isn't just the story of the Lees, it's the archetypal narrative of modern old money, where immense success and deep-seated failings are two sides of the same gilded coin. The world is full of families like this, with their own secrets and sagas. Which East Asian old money family would you like us to explore next? We genuinely love hearing your ideas in the comments. Thank you for joining me in this little corner of history. If you, like me, are fascinated by these deep dives into the world's most powerful families, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more. Until next time.